Here are some of the most intense moments of kids attacking cops. The first incident involving 15-year-old in Apple Valley was tragic and intense. It began with a 911 call made by his family around 4:48 p.m. on March 9th.
Ryan was reportedly involved in aggressive behavior as he was assaulting family members and causing damage to the property. In the audio released by the sheriff's department, a woman can be heard clearly distressed, explaining the situation and describing it as an assault and battery. She mentions that Ryan even broke a window, and there's a sense of urgency in her voice as she says, "They gotta take him in." Her words hint that the family may have reached a breaking point and were genuinely concerned for their safety. Deputies arrived at the scene about 6 minutes after the call. As the first deputy approached the residence, they were met by Ryan, who was holding a long garden tool with a sharp blade. This wasn't a small, harmless item. A 5-foot-long tool with a sharp edge can easily cause serious harm, especially if used in a threatening manner. According to the sheriff's department, as soon as the deputy encountered him, Ryan lifted the blade and rushed toward the officer. The deputy tried to step back, signaling an attempt to avoid confrontation. This detail matters because it shows the deputy didn't immediately resort to force. In response to Ryan's actions, the deputy ultimately shot him. Despite the fact that they tried to provide medical assistance on the spot, Ryan's injuries were severe, and he was later pronounced dead at the hospital. This tragic outcome raises many questions about the balance between self-defense and the use of lethal force in high-stress situations involving young people. It's difficult to fully understand what was going through both Ryan's and the deputy's minds. In video footage following the shooting, emotional scenes emerged as family members questioned why a firearm was used instead of a less lethal option, such as a taser. The deputy's decision to use a gun instead of other non-lethal tools has sparked debate on social media and in public discussions. Deputies were seen giving medical assistance to Gaynor before paramedics arrived, though his injuries were ultimately fatal. Sheriff Shannon Dicus addressed the community and shared some additional context. He explained that deputies had been called to Gaynor's home several times in the past due to behavioral issues. In previous incidents, Gaynor had been taken to a mental health facility, but no force was used. It is unclear whether the deputies who arrived on March 9th were aware of Gaynor's previous encounters with law or his autism diagnosis. Sheriff Dicus acknowledged the broader issue that law often becomes the primary responder in situations where individuals are in mental health crises, despite the existence of social services designed to handle these cases. Dicus pointed out that even with the best possible mental health support, there are instances where de-escalation may not work. He argued that law's primary role is to respond to immediate threats and ensure public safety. What began as a routine trick-or-treating evening took a turn when May saw the girls walking along the street. He noticed one girl throw a can onto the road and decided to pull over to confront them. May warned them that if they littered again, they would face arrest. However, the girls didn't take him seriously and began arguing with him. The tension quickly escalated, and instead of walking away as instructed, they grew more defiant. One of the girls even threw another can directly at May, intensifying the situation. As May continued following the group, he tried to reason with the girls, asking them to call their parents so he could address the situation properly. The girls refused to comply and hurled insults at him. Despite his repeated attempts to de-escalate the argument, the girls remained defiant. May attempted to maintain his composure while insisting that he needed to speak to their parents about the littering incident. The girls seemed unwilling to cooperate, making the officer's job much harder. The situation escalated further when one of the girls suddenly grabbed May. The officer tried to calm them down and demanded they step back, but they ignored him. In the heat of the moment, one of the girls threw something at him, which caused May to react defensively. The argument reached a boiling point as the girls became more aggressive, showing no signs of backing down. May repeatedly told them to get back, but the girls continued to close in on him. The physical confrontation reached its peak when May decided to take action. He grabbed one of the girls and took her to the ground, trying to regain control of the situation. Immediately, the other 3 girls began to attack him, hitting him in the face and neck. Backup officers arrived just in time to help May break up the fight. Even after the girls were restrained and placed in the squad cars, they continued yelling and causing a scene. Their defiance didn't end with the fight, and the officers had to deal with the aftermath. As a small crowd began to gather, the officers quickly worked to get the girls into police cars and transport them to the station. Despite being told multiple times to calm down, the girls continued arguing and screaming. One of the girls, who had allegedly punched May, tried to argue that she was now cooperating, but May pointed out it was too late for that. The damage had already been done. One of the girls who had punched May in the face was the next to be taken to the police station. She argued that she had only pushed him back in self-defense, but May calmly explained that it was all caught on camera. She was under arrest for battery on a police officer. The girls' parents would be called once they arrived at the station. Despite their protests, the girls were clearly in trouble for their actions. During the altercation, one of the girls began to experience an asthma attack. May immediately called for medical assistance to ensure she received the help she needed. Another officer pointed out that May himself might need medical attention after being hit multiple times in the face. The officers searched for the girl's asthma pump while waiting for an emergency team to arrive. The situation had taken a serious turn, and the officers were now dealing with both medical and legal concerns. The safety of everyone involved became a priority, and the officers acted quickly to address the asthma attack. After the girls were taken into custody, May explained to his fellow officers how the situation had escalated so quickly. He recounted that it all started when the girls threw a Red Bull can onto the street, which led him to stop and confront them. Despite his attempts to simply have them pick up the trash, they began running away. May followed them, intending to speak with their parents, but the girls became more aggressive, and eventually, physical altercations began. May later checked on one of the girls who had been sitting in the squad car for a while, but it was clear that she hadn't cooled off. Reflecting on the situation, May explained that what began as a simple littering incident had spiraled into a full-blown physical fight. The entire event had been caught on camera, leaving little room for debate about what had happened. In the end, all of the girls involved faced serious charges for their actions. Despite their ages, the consequences of their behavior would be severe, and what could have been a minor issue had turned into a major legal problem. On September 22, 2016, in Hagerstown, Maryland, a police incident involving a young 15-year-old girl on a bike unfolded in a tense encounter. The girl was involved in a minor traffic incident when her bicycle collided with a vehicle. The driver, who was waiting with a green light, described how the young girl suddenly rode into the side of his car. After the accident, officers arrived to assist and asked both parties for their information. The officers tried to detain her, but she resisted, which led to a struggle between her and the officers. She reportedly became more uncooperative as they attempted to put her in the police cruiser, even resisting their efforts physically. Eventually, the officers had to take further action by using pepper spray to subdue her. This action, according to Captain Paul Kiefer, was deemed necessary, as they felt the situation called for force to bring her under control and ensure safety. The situation became tense as the officers continued to handle the 15-year-old girl involved in the bike accident. The officers were focused on identifying her and obtaining her information for their report, but the girl resisted, refusing to cooperate. This escalated when she refused to wait for her parents to arrive, displaying frustration and confusion about the entire situation. Despite the officers' attempt to remain calm and de-escalate the situation, the girl did not respond calmly to their repeated requests for cooperation. In the following minutes of the incident, the girl became more defiant, creating challenges for the officers involved. The girl seemed concerned about her parents and her own situation, yet she continued to resist their attempts to assist and contain her. Despite efforts to calm her down, she reacted strongly, stating her reluctance to comply. The officers continued asking her to sit still, warning her of the consequences if she did not. As the interaction progressed, she verbally expressed discomfort, making it clear that she did not want to go with the officers. The officers recognized her resistance, knowing she was a minor, but also sensing the need to maintain control. Their communication seemed to seek compliance without causing unnecessary distress. But her responses made it increasingly difficult to proceed without using further methods to manage her behavior. Eventually, the officers had to take a more decisive approach when the young girl refused to put her feet inside the police cruiser. They had warned her that pepper spray might be used if she continued to resist, but hoped she would comply. Unfortunately, her continued defiance forced the officers to act on their warning to control her. While pepper spray is usually a last resort, the officers felt it was necessary to ensure safety for both the girl and themselves. Despite her reaction to the pepper spray, they finally managed to get her inside the cruiser. The officers acted to complete their duty while also being mindful of the fact that she was a minor, which added complexity to the situation. By using a level of force they felt was necessary, they were able to secure her safely, but the method raised questions about how best to handle minors in challenging situations. After the incident, Captain Paul Kiefer, a senior officer in Hagerstown, shared his perspective on the officers' actions that day. He explained that while the officers did have to use pepper spray, they were aware of the girl's age and had acted within proper conduct. Kiefer mentioned that the officers had provided her with multiple opportunities to comply before escalating to stronger actions. According to him, they followed protocols and warned her several times, especially when she began kicking and resisting more. Kiefer's explanation suggested that the officers had tried to resolve the matter peacefully, resorting to force only when they felt it was unavoidable. Don't forget to comment down your thoughts on this. And while you're down there, make sure to give this video a like and also smash that subscribe button for more such content.